conspiracies. Peering into darkness is what we do. Derek and Sharon Gilbert break it all down for you.
Thank you, AI Elvis, and welcome to the program. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and you know what? We want to welcome you to our home. Even though the dogs are with the anti-lean for the weekend, we are not in the barn. And one reason for that is Derek and I, we like sitting in our couches and doing this. It's not that we're lazy, it's just we're old.
Yeah, that's it. So, as we do every week, we remind you to get our free mobile app that is available at iOS or for iOS, Android, Amazon, Kindle Fire devices. That's available at gilberthouse.org/app or pidradio.com/app. If you're subscribing to us through your favorite podcatcher, whether that's Amazon Music, YouTube Music. Hey, if you're subscribing to YouTube Music, leave us a comment below the program. Do you like the new jingle? What do you think? Let us know in the comments. Or any of the other places where you can subscribe to podcasts, which, of course, is wherever fine podcasts are sold. We appreciate you doing so and leaving us a good review.
By the way, if you are listening to this on YouTube, thank you very much. Please subscribe. And if you liked it, then like it. That would be great because it helps the algorithm to push us forward a little bit. But also hit the notification bell because you may have noticed on Facebook and on X, I asked a question. What would you like PID Radio to be, a daily? And if so, do you want it to be live now and then? Well, Derek and I are thinking about going live now and then, not on a regular basis, but if breaking news happens, going live with PID Radio next year. So if you hit the notification bell, you'll know when that happens.
Exactly. So many ways to get the program. And, of course, you can just listen right through the mobile app, which is one reason that we encourage that, because you never know when our channel on YouTube might...
You never know.
You never know. I might
Things
say something
happen.
that because I'm so controversial.
We try, Derek and I try not to do that. We like to stay on Mars Hill whenever possible.
Yeah. You know, I think we could really become a popular podcast if we found some semi-controversial topic and just started dribbling out hints that we have an investigation ongoing and we're this close to solving it.
You know, I have to say that there are many people that we know who love content like that. To a certain degree, it's like, okay, I want to solve a mystery. I want to be a detective. I want to keep hearing clue after clue after clue and dig down to the bottom of it. Sadly, many of these have no bottom.
Yeah.
And that's intentional.
That's intentional, right. You can dive down the rabbit hole and just find that there is no bottom to that hole. And it's because the person who has told you to follow them down the rabbit hole is found a way to monetize their hole.
So you get breadcrumbs.
Right. You get breadcrumbs. And look, we're not going to name names because that's not how we roll.
And if you listen to any of these podcasts, great. We have no problem with that. It's just that's not what Derek and I feel called to do.
Right.
So we're probably always going to be a little, small potatoes thing.
Exactly.
We don't
we've
care.
We've been doing this for 20 years on this particular podcast. And you'd think after 20 years of doing the podcast, we'd be higher in the rankings. But that's because we're not chasing those things. So anyway,
but understand, rankings don't mean anything to us.
No, they don't. We would rather be correct in the information we put out there. Mm-hmm. And over the years, we put out some stuff that's pretty out there. You might remember we interviewed somebody who was convinced that the water system in Los Angeles was going to be used to make people sick or perhaps used for a mass...
We have talked about so many conspiracies in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And we've chosen just to, okay, here's what we know about it, and then we move on.
Yeah.
And why is that?
The Franklin scandal, so
yeah.
on. Franklin cover-up.
Good grief. Yeah. And reason we do that is PID radio means peering into darkness. We're trying to see what the fallen realm wants you to believe. They're leaving breadcrumbs everywhere.
Right, yeah. And In fact, I wrote about one really well-known case of somebody who went down a rabbit hole so deep that it actually literally drove him insane. And that's the case of Paul Benowitz. Wrote about him in the book that I co-authored with Donna Howell and Allie Anderson on the UFO phenomenon called Destination Earth. And Paul Benowitz was responsible for propagating the idea that there's a secret underground base at Dulce, New Mexico, where humans and aliens are working together, and we're getting secret alien tech, and the aliens are participating in a hybrid program. And Benowitz was led down this rabbit hole by an Air Force intelligence officer and William Moore, who was co-author of the book The Roswell Incident, which came out in the 1980s. And that was really the beginning of the whole Roswell thing. I think people, when they think of Roswell, New Mexico today, just assume that Roswell has been the center of UFO research since the incident in 1947. But that's not true. What happened after 1947 was pretty well forgotten until the closure of Walker Air Force Base, which was where our nuclear-capable bombers in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s were based. They closed it, and that put about a third of the houses in Roswell on the market all at once. So real estate values collapsed. There was no reason for the town. I mean, the town has got, there's a dairy industry down there in New Mexico, but not much else going on. And suddenly the town was desperate. What do we do? How do we save the town? Hey, remember that thing that happened back in 1947? And suddenly, with the publication of the book by Charles Berlitz and William Moore, The Roswell Incident.
That's the book.
That was the book. Suddenly, Roswell became a hotbed of interest. Anyway, Paul Benowitz was a contractor for the U.S. military and down in New Mexico, outside Kirtland Air Force Base, and he noticed strange lights over the base and started asking questions. And given that he was a physicist, very intelligent, was asking uncomfortable questions that might have led to revealing information that the military didn't want the Russians to know. So Air Force intelligence officer paired up with William Moore and started gaslighting him. Hey, did you know that there's this thing going on out there in the desert? To draw his attention away from Kirtland Air Force Base. And Benowitz, like the X-Files, was drip, 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 drip. He was just always this close to solving the mystery.
And that will drive you nuts.
Exactly.
In fact, it may have been behind the octopus.
The octopus. That's exactly what I was going to say. And the documentary that Netflix ran recently, which if you've not seen, we recommend, called The Octopus Murders.
Just ignore the ending.
Just ignore the ending. Young man who was drawn into the mystery and began following all of the clues. And we did a program on PID Radio back early on, 2005 or 6, called On the Octopus. One of the journalists, independent journalists who was researching it, Virginia McCullough, out of California, who had written a series of articles doing a deep dive into the strange things that happened at the Cabazon Indian Reservation at Indio, California. She reached out to us. She found out that we had done the program and said that what we had done was the best summary of the octopus that she'd had, because it's huge. It's mind-boggling.
It's called that because it has at least 8 tentacles, but there are so many tentacles to that whole investigation. It's a rabbit hole that leads to a labyrinth. Yeah.
What's the phrase that Churchill used? A mystery inside an
enigma that's wrapped inside a
conundrum or whatever. So anyway, the ending of the program, that 3-part series on Netflix, is that the whole thing is baloney sausage, as my dad would say. And that's really not the case. What they're wanting you to think is nothing to see here, citizen, move along. The first 2.5 episodes, really good digging into it, but then the last half of the 3rd episode is psych. So,
it reminds me of the X-Files itself. You
Yeah.
would get drip, 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 story after story that was leading in a particular direction, and then suddenly Mulder finds out that everything he's been told is a lie.
yeah. Yeah.
And then he finds out that the lie is a lie.
Uh-huh.
So,
Well,
yeah.
That's the kind of thing that Paul Benowitz went through and why he went nuts. But
It's tragic.
it is tragic. But what's sad about it, even more tragic, is that now the existence of that deep underground military base, or the DUM, is part of UFO lore. And UFO true believers will not think logically or critically about it, as the researcher Jacques Vallée asked Linda Moulton Howe, who takes out the trash?
Yeah. And my answer to that, well, maybe there's an incinerator of some kind, so there is no taking out of the trash. But that would leave a heat signature.
Right. And that's what Vallée's point was. You're telling me there's a city the size of Manhattan underneath the desert there. Where's the water coming from?
Yeah.
Who takes out the trash? Why is there no heat signature available from space?
Well,
so anyway,
let me just say this.
critical thinking.
There are underground facilities,
Yeah.
but not city size.
Not city size.
That can be proven.
No.
And the fact that it can't be proven means that it can still be a conspiracy.
Yeah,
That's the thing about conspiracies.
I asked Lieutenant Colonel Bob McGinnis during one of his visits to Skywatch TV, and he was there again recently, and the current series right now on his new book, AI for Humanity's Future, is really fascinating because Bob is a deep thinker, and he comes at it from a military perspective where he can see the implications of actions. He's really good at that. I asked him about Site R.
Yeah.
Which was the underground facility beneath Raven Rock Mountain. What a great name.
I know.
Just northwest of Washington, D.C. It's in southern Pennsylvania, southeastern Pennsylvania. And that's where Vice President, now the late Vice President Dick Cheney, his funeral was just this past week, was taken on 9/11. That site has the ability to communicate with American military units all over the world from underground that mountain. So if Washington, D.C. gets taken out, you can switch all military command and control to Site R. And in my book, The God Conspiracy, my novel, I used Site R as a scene for a confrontation with one of the supernatural forces directing the action of the novel. And I asked Bob, what do you know about Site R? Have you ever been there? And he kind of looked and thought about it for a second and said, well, if I had, I couldn't tell you. Whatever I know, I couldn't tell you. It's one of those things that's secret. There's some information out there on the internet, no way to verify whether it's true or not. So the good thing is nobody can ever contradict me. You got that wrong. How do you know?
Well, let me do a left turn.
Yeah.
Let me do a left turn. Here's something you may not have thought of, listener, and maybe Derek hasn't either. Derek, can you tell me how, without looking it up, can you tell me how many Starlink satellites are in orbit?
Oh, my gosh. The number 3,000 comes to mind.
Nearly 9,000.
9,000. Okay.
8,800 is what the number that I found, current active satellites. And the key there is active, because these are low Earth orbiting. These are LEOs, which means that they eventually will degrade and then return to Earth. They're pretty small, but because they will eventually degrade and return to Earth, what goes up and comes down has the potential of hitting something.
Yeah.
8,800 satellites, and he's putting up more.
Yeah.
So, if you listen to this and you understand, Derek and I love to look at Bible prophecy. That's one of the big drivers behind our love of the news, is we try to see how does this connect in any way to Bible prophecy. The stars falling from heaven.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that stars in the biblical sense, because oftentimes that refers to entities as well as heavenly physical like not non-living things. I think it may be that if an event occurs that affects the geocentric or geospatial, whichever it is, geosynchronous satellites, and that includes the low Earth orbit ones, a lot of things are going to be falling from the sky.
True. As you said, though, often when we see references to the stars, for example, in Job, where God tells Job, hey, where were you when I created everything? And the stars sang for joy. Or say Revelation 12, when Satan, the dragon, is cast down and his tail sweeps down a third of the stars. Those are believed to be his angels that are fighting with Michael and his angels.
That is true. But also think about this. Quote unquote, air quotes, hailstones that weigh a talent each.
75 pounds. Yeah.
I'd say that's about the weight of a satellite.
Well, or what's left of one. When when the rest of it burns up in
9,000 of
on
those.
the way down. Yeah.
Possibly all.
Well, that is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah, the Chinese are kind of cheesed that there's such a gauntlet that has to be run when you put up your own satellite, because you got all these Starlink satellites up there.
And they're also affecting stargazing.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you'll see something moving, it's actually a satellite.
Yeah. Yeah, and a whole line of them moving at once. The Starlink satellites going across the sky. Yeah, interesting.
I know a lot of people are using Starlink. You and I live out in the middle of nowhere. Many of you also live in the country. And, hey, kudos to you if you do, because it's a great place to live. Fresh air, clean water. You can get Starlink just about anywhere. But as I say, Musk is putting up more and more satellites every day and opening up Starlink to more and more countries. Yeah,
and it's actually something we were talking about ourselves this morning, because what we do requires decent internet. And when we started out here, we discovered once we moved here, because it wasn't something we'd even thought about. We got here, and it's like, how do we get internet? So we had to do, satellite internet with satellite TV, which was awful. Work. Then we got another radio-delivered system, which was better,
really expensive, but not reliable.
And now we're getting one that's essentially, what's the term?
It's actually Brightspeed is the name of it, but it's fiber through the telephone line.
Yeah, it's fiber up to the telephone box, and then it runs the signal in on the old telephone
I know,
connection,
and we've got a really old
the copper connections from the box to the house. It's like, well, why can't you run fiber to the house? Well,
that's going to cost you.
We'd have to dig a trench, and that'd cost you $2,000 per linear foot, which is basically the we don't want to do it price.
Yes, seriously, that's what they told us.
Yeah, so Starlink is looking like a pretty good option.
I know, so we may do it, but, that's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Now, total left turn, because I mentioned living in the country.
Yeah.
I
think
it's
you're going
a bit
where
connected.
I'm just going to go.
To the deer?
Yes.
Where the antelope play?
Yes, release
Imagine
the deer.
the ghost deer investigation. Called so because these are deer that aren't supposed to exist. It's an illegal breeding operation of deer down in Texas.
Deer smuggling operation.
Yeah, well, they're breeding them too. And it's been discovered that some of their deer have chronic wasting disease, which means that as they move these deer, that CWD can infect other populations.
Yeah.
Chronic wasting disease has been for decades a very big problem in deer and other ruminant populations. I remember driving back to Indiana, maybe in 2005, 2006, and almost every mile there was a deer carcass from where it had just not been hit by a car. It wasn't that. They weren't doing that. They were just dead, and they were wasted away. This is a major disease.
Yeah, this is strange. This was a breeding facility that was linked to a deer smuggling operation. Now, why would you need to smuggle deer? We got deer all over the place here in southwest Missouri.
I know.
We had them back in Illinois, too. They were coming into the subdivision because our subdivision backed up to a big farming area. So deer were, going through the farms and nibbling on the corn or whatnot.
I'm with you. I really don't understand why. If you understand it, if you're listening to this and you know why that is a thing, maybe you're a hunter and maybe there are folks that just want to go to a deer ranch and do nothing but shoot. I don't know. Maybe it's for the meat. I don't know. But if you know, please comment. Let us know either in the app or at YouTube in the comments section. Also, this story, by the way, came from CIDRAP. It is a wonderful reference, a wonderful resource. I mean, CIDRAP. If you want to go, it's a report that comes from University of Minnesota, I believe.
Yeah.
And Osterholm. Gosh, can't think of his first name. Michael Osterholm.
Yeah.
Well, I think he is still the head of the department, but he was one of the individuals who agreed with some of the things that you and I were saying about a certain disease back when.
Yeah.
And I won't name it. But you can look it up and see the things that he said back in 2021.
He was also somebody that we were following quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Back during the 2014 Ebola outbreak.
Because he was really looking into that. And by the way, Marburg, which is another hemorrhagic disease along with Ebola, it has broken out in Ethiopia, and it's the first outbreak of Marburg disease in Ethiopia. There is no vaccine for Marburg disease. Last I looked, it was 6 dead, but it's difficult to tell what the numbers actually are because the government is not forthcoming with information. However, our government, the United States, has issued a travel warning for people. Please do not travel to Ethiopia.
Yeah. That is a disease with a case fatality rate upwards of...
up to 80%.
Up to 80%.
Yeah.
I was going to say upwards of 50%. It depends on where it breaks out and the kind of medical care that's available
and also
in that area.
What population it's hitting. If it's children, it's different. Also, Mpox, which was once called monkeypox. Mpox is also, there's an outbreak of that also in Ethiopia, which is also the version of Mpox which is broken out there is the hemorrhagic version. So there is a communication issue with that as well. I've even read some reports saying, no, they're confusing the two. Okay. I don't know that it really matters to the person who died.
No.
But speaking of people who die, the gentleman, person, it doesn't say male or female, someone with comorbidities is what we're told, someone who has now died, who for weeks has been battling H5N5, a type of avian influenza.
Yeah, that was in...
the Pacific Northwest?
Washington State.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an older adult. They've not named the person, but this was confirmed just yesterday by state health officials in Washington. And said there were, as you say, underlying comorbidities.
A rare strain of bird flu has...
Quiet. I hate it when these videos pop up and start playing.
Yeah, that's why I keep the sound down on my device all the time.
Should have done. So what is the difference between H5N5 and H5N1?
It's the neuraminidase, which is that second number. The hemagglutinin is the H number, and it allows it's essentially the key to getting into your cells. The neuraminidase is the key to getting out. So I haven't seen a whole lot of reports in the 30 years that I've been following avian flu. I've not seen very many reports about that H5N5. I've seen H5N8, H5N1, H5N2, H2 and 9. There have been a bunch of them, but I've not seen H5N5. However, I did find a report from a few years back, many years back, a couple of decades even. It was a report that was released regarding experiments to see what would happen if ... Gain
of function.
Gain of function research. Yeah.
Well, according to ABC, there's been 70 cases of H5N5 among humans since March of last year, March of 24.
That's a lot.
But there's no evidence that they're spreading human to human. These are people who've come into contact with infected cattle, infected poultry farms, or other culling operations.
You know what's
And
interesting?
in most of the cases, people really don't have anything more than just mild fever, red eyes, and so on. But this is the first death of somebody who has been infected with H5N5.
They're actually saying it's H5N5. They didn't say just H5.
H5N5, correct.
Okay.
First ever death from H5N5.
That's really interesting. H5N1 in dairy populations has, in humans, that's how it's presented, as a flu-like illness, often red eyes, conjunctivitis. It's interesting that H5N1 had the same presentation, except for this individual, and we pray for that person and the family. Look, no matter what takes your loved one, it's tragic.
In fact, I was mistaken. The other 70 infections are H5N1, not H5N5.
I thought so, because
you're
oftentimes
correct.
the report will just say H5.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of N numbers out there.
Yeah.
And again, H is how it gets into your cells, and the N allows it to propagate throughout your body.
Yeah. So that is H5N5 being rare, and because it's not likely to spread human to human, unless it's been tweaked somehow. But
Well, you never know what's out there.
Yeah.
Scientists are just very curious individuals.
Yeah, the Marburg story is a much bigger deal.
I think so too.
Yeah. Now you have to come into, as with Ebola, you have to come into contact with the bodily fluids of the person who's been infected to catch the disease. But and in that part of the world, burial customs may expose people to those fluids where in say Western with Western medicine.
Yeah.
You would have protocols in place where people would not come into contact with those
The
things.
families, I believe, most of those countries, it's the custom that the family prepare the loved one for burial,
Right.
and therefore it's hands-on.
Yeah, and that can lead to things spreading, and that was one of the problems that health officials were running into back in 2014 with the Ebola outbreak in West Africa. They really had difficulty convincing people, hey, no, seriously, you can't touch the body. Seriously. There's a real distrust of European and Western doctors and medicine in Africa. And that, sometimes that's warranted, but in other cases, it's really contributed to the spread of the disease.
Yeah.
So there is something I wanted to touch on that I just read about for the first time last night. I didn't know that this was even a thing, and this just points to the spiritual wickedness. I mean, we're talking demonic wickedness that is present among humans. Back during the civil war in Serbia and in Bosnia, there was an incident back in the 1990s during the Bosnian War that was called the Siege of Sarajevo, where Serbian snipers situated themselves in like abandoned apartment buildings.
This is back in the 90s?
This is back in the 90s. So we're talking during the Clinton administration. This was when NATO was backing the bombing of Serbia, and you remember Slobodan Milosevic. There was a 4-year siege of Sarajevo by Serbians in Bosnia against the Muslims of Serbia. Prosecutors this past week in Milan, Italy, have opened an investigation into Italian tourists who allegedly paid up to 70,000 pounds, which would be, what, about $85,000 US, maybe $90,000,
Yeah.
to go on human safaris in Sarajevo.
What?
Yeah, this is a well-known thing in Sarajevo. The people who survived it are aware of this, but apparently this is now just coming to light in Europe, that Western tourists, Italian prosecutors are now opening cases, but it's also been reported that Brits, Germans, were paying to go to Sarajevo, being taken there by Serbians, and allowed then to set up sniper nests and start picking off humans. The Bosnian Muslims, and this is why, by the way, when I was living in St. Louis back in the 90s, even before we met, there was an influx of Bosnians into St. Louis. St. Louis has become, to a lesser extent, like Minneapolis is, little Mogadishu. You get all the Somalis up there. And want to talk about the Somalis, too, in just a minute. But there was an influx of Bosnians, and why there are a number of mosques that have popped up. In fact, the little independent Baptist church we were members of in St. Louis is now a mosque.
I remember that,
in predominantly white Protestant West County, St. Louis. There is a mosque. Anyway, but the Bosnians in Sarajevo, in order to live their lives, to get to the grocery store or go to school, when they get out on the street, they knew that they just had to run, and they have to zigzag so that the snipers up in these apartment buildings wouldn't shoot them.
Oh my gosh! No, the Bosnians primarily Catholic.
Muslim.
Oh, the Bosnians are the Muslims.
Yeah.
The Serbians
are Orthodox, Russian Orthodox or Eastern Orthodox.
I had to ask because in my immunology class, one of my immunology classes at Indiana University, I had a couple of students that were in there as well. In fact, we sat in the same row. And forgive me, I cannot think of their names, and I wouldn't say them even if I could remember them, but I can see their faces. You know what it's like. One was Catholic, Orthodox. The other one was Muslim. They had both come to IU from Sarajevo.
Okay.
And they worked it out, the two of them. I asked them, because it was very much ongoing at the time. This was in 1993.
Yeah.
And I asked, okay, I'm stupid, consider me stupid. How is it the two of you are sitting there and becoming friends? And they said, because we want to be friends.
Yeah.
It could happen over there too.
Yeah, but it's very difficult. I'm looking at the story now at the Daily Mail, and there are other reports in the Telegraph, the BBC reports on this, and these are just within the last few days.
Oh, I don't doubt you at all. It's just so sad that the truth is that if you meet a person and you get to know them, you'll realize they're not the boogeyman.
Yeah, you have to dehumanize the other.
And that's what these people were doing, the shooters.
Right.
Paying because they didn't see these other individuals as anything more than objects in a game.
It's like the story that the Most Dangerous Game, which was turned into a movie with Joseph Cotten back in the 40s.
I was thinking about that very
And we listened to a radio dramatization of it.
Yeah.
Joseph Cotten as Mr. Rainsford. And there was a Russian fellow who...
I can't remember who played that.
The story is the man was shipwrecked and wound up on an island. And he was rescued, he was fed, and then basically told, okay, I'm going to let you go, but you've got 24 hours to survive. And if you survive at the end of 24 hours, then I'll let you go. You can get off the island, but good luck. And it was basically a human safari, and that's what was going on in Sarajevo. backstory, between 1992 and 1996, Sarajevo was under siege. Now, I was in my 30s at that point, and I don't remember any of this. Either I was just so wrapped up in what I was doing with my, well,
With your life?
I was thinking my radio career, but my radio career was pretty much over by that point. I was trying to make a living first in real estate and then in doing.
Oh,
some
you
other
had a
things.
lot of other things.
There were a lot of
going on in
other
your
things
life at the
going
time.
on, but anyway, we didn't have as many news sources then either, because the
True.
internet was not yet a thing.
I listened to shortwave radio back then.
10,000 people were killed in Sarajevo by shelling and sniper fire. And again, the sniper fire was so constant that, according to the article, people would just have to run down the street zigzagging so that the snipers wouldn't pick them
You know,
off.
it
And
sounds. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
according to this, these sniper tourists would fly from Trieste to Belgrade on the Serbian airline, and they would pay between 70 and 88,000 pounds for the privilege of going for the weekend and trying. It's the most dangerous game, but it was happening in real life, where wealthy people with, I don't know who, I guess were just bored. I mean, going out and hunting, big game is not exciting enough. I want to see if I can actually bag me a human. And there was actually a documentary that was put out a few years ago about this in 2022, Sarajevo Safari. The filmmaker gathered testimonies about this, and it was screened once. There were people who were, upset that this came out, and so this documentary didn't get any traction. But
Is it available still to watch?
I don't know.
I'll have to look for that.
Yeah.
It reminds me. I've never seen the movie The Hunger Games. But isn't it like that?
It is sort of like that, except that this is real life, and these people were just. It wasn't like if you're the last one to survive, you're free to go. It's like every day. If you want to, I mean, there's a picture here of people in Sarajevo in the mid '90s, just trying to live their lives, just ducking and running because they're under sniper fire. I mean, imagine you're living in a big city. You got to go to the corner grocery store to get staples, and you got to run for your life because guys up there that you can't even see in these sniper nests are shooting at you.
I think those days are coming. That the depravity that can be imagined exists.
Yeah.
If you can imagine it, you better believe it exists somewhere, because the depth of mankind's sin is deeper than you can ever find.
Yeah.
It's almost bottomless.
So I was shocked when I read this story last night. The journalist writing for the Daily Mail wrote that he had gone to Sarajevo to check up on this to see, because again the story of the legal case being opened against the guy in Milan is the owner of a cosmetic surgery clinic. So a wealthy guy thinks that, hey, this would add some excitement to his otherwise boring life. I don't know. Or just the depravity of thinking, I've got the power of life and death. I mean, maybe there are guys who get a thrill from that. And he was talking to a mother who 30 years ago lost her 17-year-old son who was riding his bicycle to his friend's home and was shot through the heart with a sniper rifle so cleanly that there was no blood, according to the journalist. And the mother just looked at him like he was bringing up these, old wounds. And it's like, and she just asked him, what are you hoping to accomplish?
Yeah.
I mean, but this is the kind of thing that we do on this program. It's like, okay, yeah, we got this, upbeat, fun-sounding jingle that opens the program, but peering into darkness. We need to remember that intelligent evil exists and works through human agents.
Yeah.
And what happened 30 years ago, and most of us here in the West, and I'm including myself in here, just clueless as to what was going on in Sarajevo, clueless as to what's going on in Nigeria, the story that just came out about
schools.
The schools of I mean, we're fixating on what's happening in Gaza, but there was a story that just dropped this week, CBN News reporting on it, but also, gosh, I had
I think
it here and now I lost
CBN
it.
released that it was over 50 school children who were kidnapped.
CBN reported, got it here, CBN's report said it was 52 children and staff at a Catholic boarding school in western Nigeria were abducted early Friday. And this was just days after 25 schoolgirls were abducted in a neighboring state. The latest one took place at St. Mary's School in Aguara State. I think that's the name of the location. No, Aguara is the local government. It's in Niger State or Niger State. But the other report here, which cites a government official in Niger State, Daniel Latori, spokesperson to the Niger State chapter of the Christian Association of Nigeria, said it was 215 students and 12 teachers.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, you remember back during the Obama administration, where Michelle Obama was, hashtag Save Our Girls. Dozens of those girls are still missing. And we're talking more than 10 years after they were abducted.
Well, let me just put this in.
82 of them are still missing out of the 276 that were abducted back in 2014.
Oh, my goodness. Well, the government of Nigeria is dismissing allegations of any religious persecution in his country. In other words, these are all lies. None of this is going on. Then why do we keep seeing these stories and have done now for 20 years?
Yeah. Dauda Chakula, whose 4 grandchildren were among the abductees, said, quote, "We don't know what is happening now because we've not heard anything since this morning. The children who were able to escape have scattered, some of them back to their houses, and the only information we are getting is that the attackers are still moving with the remaining children into the bush." No description has been given for the attackers. Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics writes, "The timing and nature of the attack placed the fate of Nigerian Christians in stark relief. On Monday, in the early hours of the morning, a group of gunmen attacked a girls' boarding school in northwestern Nigeria, kidnapping 25 girls, many of them Christian. The attack killed the school's vice principal, Malam Hassan Makaku, who tried to block the door to the girls' dormitory with his body.
Oh, my gosh.
The gunman's assault on the school took more than 20 minutes and failed to prompt any intervention from government security forces located at a checkpoint not far from the school. They could hear the shooting more than likely and did not intervene, which is consistent with what you said from the government spokesman. No, there's no.
Well, it's more than just a government spokesman. There is a delegation that has been meeting with our U.S. Secretary of War.
Yeah.
Used to be called Secretary of Defense, but it's the Department of War now.
Yeah.
And also members of Congress stating that the Nigerian counterterrorism operations are making sure that everybody is treated fairly in Nigeria. They explain that these engagements aim to correct misconceptions amplified during recent congressional discussions and advocacy campaigns. It reminds me a bit of what's going on in the UK with regards to what's being called the grooming gangs.
Yeah.
We talked about this last week. They're actually something else. They're assault gangs, but these gangs were to be investigated because finally Sadiq Khan's team around him said, we've got to do something about this. And the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said that they would investigate it. Well, now that has been tabled. No, we don't want to talk about that. We want to do other things that make you like us. But we're not actually going to do anything with the money you give us. But we do need more money. Yeah. There is spiritual wickedness all across the globe. But the thing that you and I, and this is why we can open with a cheerful jingle, and this is why Derek and I often laugh when we are recording these podcasts and recording programs, because we've seen the end. We know that our Lord has already won against death itself. He took on all of the sins of the world. And the day is coming when the war that's already been won will be made manifest in his kingdom. But for now, the wickedness is allowed to go on until it has reached its fullness.
Yeah.
But you can pray against that. You can share the gospel. You can lift up Christ crucified, risen, and coming again. You can share, spiritual quotes. You can share Bible quotes, scripture on your social media sites. There are things you can do to plant seeds in the world to help counter. If you can just reach one person.
Yeah.
And change that person's direction.
Yeah.
That's big.
Because you never know how much time you're going to have left. And that's just the way of it.
Well, you and I yesterday went to see your mom for lunch.
Yeah.
And while we were there, wonderful gentleman who's been the pastor in residence at the manor for a long time. Just love him so much. He mentioned that a good friend of his, who had just miraculously survived a major car crash many years ago, had just suddenly died.
Yeah.
With no clues that he was going to be reaching the end of his life. He just suddenly died. The quote is, he just dropped dead.
Yeah. And it's... that can be true of any of us. I was just reading yesterday about a 25-year-old influencer who just suddenly keeled over. And it was described as, it was a kid in Brazil. But, by all accounts, he looked young and fit and healthy. Don't know if there's any connection to... Anything. It was described as cardiovascular, which
I know.
Makes you suspicious.
Died of suddenly. You just say that.
Yeah, died of suddenly. But the point is that he had no idea when he got up the other morning that was going to be his last day.
I know.
And you can never put off that decision to accept Jesus Christ, thinking, I've still got time to do it. I'll live today and just have fun. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. I was surprised that's actually in the Bible.
It is.
But that is not really a good philosophy for life. Yeah, tomorrow you may pass on. And then you'll stand before the King and have to answer that question, who do you say that I am? Well, if you haven't already answered the question before you draw your last breath, then it's already too late. So,
it is true. Very true. You mentioned, left turn, you mentioned Somalia.
Yeah. This is a really bizarre story that was broken by Christopher Rufo and a co-author, and I ask your forgiveness, I've forgotten the co-author's name.
Was the article at Substack, or
it's
was
at
it?
City Journal,
Okay.
which is, they may publish it through Substack. But anyway, Chris Rufo has been an investigative journalist who's really questioned some of the accepted narratives on a variety of things. Let's see if I can find this here. Got a bunch of stories here. There's just so much to discuss.
Yeah, I found this inside the Somali fraud rings.
Yeah, the bottom line is, and I talked about this on 5 and 10 yesterday, Friday. It's bizarre, But the number one source of income for Al-Shabaab, which is the Al-Qaeda-linked terror group that controls a big chunk of Somalia, is Minnesota taxpayers. And this is because Somalis who come from a culture, and I know this is going to sound like, well, you just don't like people because they're different from you. No, I'm sorry. Somalia is what you call a low trust culture. Ryan Thorpe is the other journalist. The Somalis who have flooded into Minnesota over the past decade or so are bringing their culture with them. And their culture is basically, it's like my dad said, the modern iteration of the golden rule is do unto others and do it quick before they can do it to you.
Sad but true.
And that is the way the Somalis in Minnesota operate. And they've discovered loopholes in the state welfare and Medicaid systems, and also the Housing Stabilization Services Program. So the U.S. Attorney for Minnesota, digging into this, has found huge amounts of fraud, and most of it is coming from the Somali community in Minnesota. Autism claims. Okay, there's a program there which is funded by the federal government to provide autism services for children. Autism claims to Medicaid in Minnesota were $3 million in 2018. 2019, $54 million. 2020, $77 million. 2021, $183 million. 2022, $279 million. And in 2023, $399 million.
My goodness.
The span of 5 years went from $3 million to $399 million.
That's crazy.
The number of autism services providers in Minnesota went from 41 in 2018 to 328 in 2023, and many of them are Somali owned and operated because they need, quote, culturally appropriate programming, end quote. 1 in 16 4-year-olds, Somali 4-year-olds in Minnesota, 1 out of 16 diagnosed with autism. That is more than triple the average for the state of Minnesota.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, that seriously is insane.
Right.
So
last
the
I
money is
heard,
going
I thought it was 1 out of 300 was this with the federal average.
It used to be much more rare than that when I was studying back in the early 90s and taking a class on mental and congenital issues, and autism was discussed in one unit. And at that time, it was extremely rare.
Yeah. Well, it is not so much anymore, and I know that RFK Jr. has taken some
heat
for suggesting that our diet is responsible for autism, or that perhaps that it's, heaven forbid, somebody suggests it's connected to the vaccine schedule recommended by the CDC.
Or it is, in some cases, a teacher or someone else who notices a young boy who's simply being a boy.
Yeah. And he's really
suggests,
acting up. Well, by the way, City Journal is city-journal.org, so it is not at Substack. City-journal.org, and the title of the article is "The Largest Funder of Al-Shabaab is the Minnesota Taxpayer."
Oh, my goodness. By the way, Christopher Rufo is on Substack.
Okay.
You can follow him if you just want to, read the things for free, but he does have a subscribe button, so if you find his information useful, you can subscribe to that. Derek and I both have Substack accounts.
Yeah.
And I don't post there very often. I'm going to start posting excerpts from some of my books and short stories, but Derek's been posting excerpts from our books. Yeah,
gilberthouse.substack.com. In fact, going back a year now, I've already worked through The Great Inception, Last Clash of the Titans, my sections from Destination Earth, Second Coming of Saturn, and we're now working through The Gates of Hell. So we're going to run out of stuff here to excerpt here soon. But we also are posting these podcast episodes, both PID Radio, the Gilbert House Fellowship, our Bible study, View from the Bunker. Those all get posted to Substack as well. So if you subscribe to Substack, our Substack, at gilberthouse.substack.com.
And it's free, by the way.
Yeah, nothing behind a paywall. You can, if you're led, there's a very easy process to donate through Substack. And thank you, by the way, if you've done that. A number of people, quite a few actually.
Many of you have.
And we really don't push it that hard, but there are people who just, hey, this is how you can support what we do. You can do it through Substack. Of course, we've also got a donate page at gilberthouse.org. But yeah, we're giving away a lot of our stuff, book content, video content, audio content, right there at Substack.
And just so you know, we really do appreciate those of you who donate. Derek and I, it definitely helps, especially as we've gotten into medical bills, but you don't have to. We are led to provide as, just without charging you, requiring a charge.
Right.
But those of you who volunteer to donate, thank you.
If you get value out of what we're doing and you've got the resources, we're certainly not asking.
No.
Because we know that, economic times are not what, and there are some, red lights flashing as far as the economy goes. So we're certainly not asking
one of those red lights, you were talking before we started PID Radio, before you hit record, you were talking about the possible AI bubble.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of an interesting story to close on here, a little bit lighter.
With our AI Elvis.
Yeah, AI Elvis is warming up in the back room. Well. A different sort of signal, economic signal, instead of looking at numbers, looking at data, looking at statistics. And of course, there are economists out there and investors who are always looking for an advantage so they can be ahead of the curve and investing the right way. This is perhaps what they're calling the Labubu omen, which sounds like Pazuzu or some other.
I know, and they're sort of cute, sort of creepy. Yeah.
Yeah, when you look at their.
It's Labubu, I think.
Yeah, their faces look like cute little. Okay, but they got little sharp, pointy teeth. And,
exactly.
They're sort of like the compies in the Jurassic Park movies. Yeah. Oh, look at the cute little dinosaur. Wow, there sure is a lot of them. A lot of you, aren't there? Wow! Back in the 90s, Beanie Babies were a big deal. In fact, Nicole had a bunch of Beanie Babies when she was young. She was born in 90. She
probably had 100 of them at one point.
Right. And, some of them went on to command a lot of money. They cost less than $1 to manufacture, and some of them at their peak were selling for thousands of dollars. Peanut the Royal Blue Elephant, we hit $5,000 back in 1999, and today, that same Peanut the Royal Blue Elephant in mint condition might go for $50. So it's, fallen by a factor of 100. So the Beanie Baby craze hit when Nicole was about 7 years old, 1997. And at one point on eBay, 10% of all eBay listings were Beanie Babies. Then suddenly the Beanie Baby craze began to tank. This was in the middle of 1999, and the dot-com bubble peaked and then popped in March of 2000. So about 9 months before the bubble burst, the Beanie Baby craze cratered. Well, over the past year, Labubus have gone vertical as far as their values go. You buy them, it's like buying baseball cards. You get a blind box. You don't know which doll you're going to get. You could get a really ultra rare valuable one, or you might get one that's, very common and worth nothing. One Labubu this year sold for over 10 grand.
Whoa!
It was a limited edition Vans old school vinyl plush doll. Kind of cute. It's got a Monsters cap on it. And again, it's got those sharp, pointy teeth in its smiling face. And Forbes, which is a serious magazine geared at investors and people who are, up higher end, talked about how Labubus might be good investments. That Vans Labubu sold for $10,000, and there was a 4-foot tall Labubu in China that sold for $170,000. So the craze this summer was exploding. A number of dolls were selling for $10,000 for special edition Labubus. A few more selling for $2,000.
This is at a time when some families have trouble buying new clothes for school. I mean, this isn't a lot of money.
Earlier this year, the toys, this according to the article from Forbes, the toys sold out in a matter of seconds each time they restocked on the Pop Mart website. Pop Mart is a company that makes them. And resellers were making hundreds to thousands of dollars on each wacky, toothy doll.
There's a fake version of them, by the way, called Lafufu.
Yes, that's right. The high prices and low inventory drove a rise in counterfeit Labubu. Stores with the dolls in stock were being overrun by customers brawling and yelling at each other to get their toy. Well, the author of the article today, which is at dailyreckoning.com, checked eBay today. None of the most expensive Labubus have any bids. Sellers are still trying to sell the most rare ones at peak prices, and nobody is biting. Looks like Labubu demand has hit a wall. And in fact, the same editor of Forbes has now written another article asking whether the Labubu craze has hit a wall and whether it is now time to look at the
next craze.
Well, you look at the market. I mean, the crypto market is now beginning to fall. Momentum stocks have hit a wall. We've been talking about the AI bubble. We did that a few weeks ago. Artificial intelligence stocks and how AI stocks are, accounting for 40% of all gains on the market as a whole here recently. There appears to be, and I won't use the crude term that was used in the article, but it appears that a lot of what look like gains in AI stocks are AI companies investing in one another in a circular fashion. And you can imagine the term that...
I can.
Yeah, so basically you've got Microsoft investing in OpenAI, which is investing in...
You can name it. This is coming at a time... Remember one of the last things that outgoing President Biden, Otto Penn, did was to sign this infrastructure bill that was going to create lots and lots of AI server farms and require more electricity out of our aging infrastructure?
Well, yeah, and just this past week it was announced the federal government's going to invest money in buying and building 10 new large nuclear reactors because we need the power. And it's mainly to fund or to provide power for AI data centers.
And isn't
the circle that was being referred to this past week, Microsoft invested in OpenAI. Microsoft/OpenAI invested in Oracle, which invested in NVIDIA, which is investing in OpenAI.
Right.
So it's basically they're
propping each other up.
Propping each other up, yeah. So the AI bubble, which has accounted for a big percentage of the gains of the stock market as a whole this year, beginning to collapse and or at least the weakness in it because nobody's figured out yet how to make money with AI.
So does the author of this piece think the drop in Labubu value is a bellwether for another? Okay.
Exactly right. That's why the Forbes editor who wrote earlier that Labubu might be a good investment now saying, maybe not so much anymore because, again, the Labubu outlook Labubu craze ending, prices are down, inventory up as eyes turn to a new toy. The author of the piece at Daily Reckoning said, just anecdotally, my middle schooler reports that Labubus are no longer cool.
Well, let me just say this. Sony Pictures has announced that they have in the works a Labubu movie.
I think they missed the peak.
Well, they may have missed the peak, but they also might kick it into high gear again.
Could be.
It's hard to say, assuming that they're still going to do it. Apparently, all of this is connected to a 2015 picture book. And it was so popular, I guess, that the little drawings were turned into dolls.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. But again, just know that we are aware that the economy is not as robust as the Biden administration made it appear. We know President Trump is doing everything he can to bring in outside investment. That may be why he's cozying up to Qatar and Saudi Arabia. Those two countries, by the way, do not like each other at all.
And may I also suggest, I think it is why he is trying to work with Mamdani. Is Mamdani going to be a great mayor for New York? I don't know. I'm not sure that his promises are going to be fulfilled. Free buses for everybody, free this, free that. That's not going to work.
No.
But he met with President Trump yesterday. And one of the funniest things I thought was Mamdani was asked by one of the reporters, so are you going to retract your previous statement that Trump is a fascist? And President Trump leaned over and said, just say yes. It's easier. Rather than trying to explain it all to the reporter.
Yeah.
So I think President Trump, who is a consummate deal maker,
Yes.
is trying to get our economy into the healthy bracket again.
Right. And he's bringing in foreign investment to do it. In fact, there's some thought that I think it was $583 billion that the Japanese promised to invest could be where the funding for the nuclear reactors will be coming from. The government of Qatar and Mohammed bin Salman, who was
who was just here,
just at the White House on Monday with red carpet treatment, Air Force flyover, military band, horses trooping the soldiers on horseback trooping the colors.
No camels, though.
No camels.
What you want is Derek found out about where are they based? The baseball team that brings in their players on camels.
It's the oh gosh, what is it called? It's a new baseball league that has been set up in the UAE, United Arab Emirates. They play their games in Dubai and in Mumbai, I think. They've got 4 teams: the Arabia Wolves, the Mideast Eagles, the team in Karachi, and the team in Mumbai. And I can't remember their nicknames. But, they bring the starting pitchers in on camel, which is hilarious. The league actually has some big Major League Baseball stars retired on the board of directors. Mariano Rivera, who is probably the best relief pitcher in history. Barry Larkin, longtime all-star shortstop for the Cincinnati Reds, and a couple of other guys. I know that one of the teams has a guy who was a relief pitcher for the Cubs back in the 90s, Les Lancaster, as their pitching coach. But, it's fun seeing baseball being played in a new environment. And apparently the people in Dubai, the first night was sort of a curiosity. And then as they began to get more familiar with the rules and the game, it seemed to be warming up to this whole thing. So
next time we fly Etihad Airline, we'll have to see if we can stay over one night and go to a baseball game.
Maybe get some merch.
That would be fun.
Actually, I think you can order it online. I may do that.
Now we're just going to end really quickly with the Old People Report. I'm doing fine. Yep. Derek just had a consult with his pulmonologist, and some tests have been ordered, so he'll find out more about that, and we'll report on that next week.
Yeah, that seems to be a very good guy. I liked him. He listened well and seemed to be genuinely concerned about my well-being.
Yeah. And that's what you want from a doctor instead of a quick drop-in if you're lucky, but mainly it's going to be the physician's assistant or nurse practitioner that comes in and drops in and then leaves. Yeah, healthcare, we're all aging, and we have more doctor's appointments. Really quickly, though, just want to remind everybody that we are still trying to rehome our 2 dogs for a lot of reasons. We're having to leave them more and more often with their groomer, and she loves having them there, and they love being with her. She cannot adopt them, though.
No,
she has plenty of dogs of her own.
Yeah.
And so if you live in the area, or even if you're in another state, and you are interested in adopting Grace and Glory, then please let us know. You can send an email to info@gilberthouse.org, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. You can also message us through Messenger.
Yeah, if you want to see pictures of either of them or both of them, you can go to either of our Facebook pages, because we have posted over the years lots of pictures of Grace and Glory.
We would love to keep them. We would love to keep them, but our situation is changing daily, and it's becoming more and more obvious that we really need to find a home for them until we come up a point where it's out of our hands. We are forced to find an immediate home for them, because suddenly we're in a home.
Yeah, the reality of the situation is not to be, depressing
alarmist
or
alarmist
or
we're
anything
just
like
looking
that.
at the reality.
Yeah, just the reality is that at our age, we are just one accident, like a fall or whatever.
Yeah, if I fall off a ladder or trip down the stairs or whatever.
Right, we're just one accident away from the 2 of us needing to be in an assisted living situation, and it's not always sure that you can bring dogs into a situation like that. But then, the physical requirements of being proper caregivers to a couple of healthy and active dogs is, that's our reality.
So anyway, if you're interested, please let us know.
info@gilberthouse.org.
Yeah.
Tomorrow morning we will be back with our weekly Bible study. And I am going to post another View from the Bunker episode.
Are you?
I'm trying to just restrict to just once a month, but there are a few exceptions that I will make. One of them is the presentation that Avi Lipkin gave to our tour group in Israel.
Yeah.
And his analysis of the situation in Israel, both geopolitically but also theopolitically. How does this play out according to Bible prophecy? He's got some very interesting insights. And the program that we did a year ago, a year and a half ago, because he addressed our small group then, he addressed our group again this year. And the funniest part was he said, I hate to admit it, but after 53 years of marriage, I found that my wife is always right. Yep. So
she's the secret weapon in that family.
Rachel Lipkin really is. She is she's Egyptian.
Egyptian-born Jew.
Yeah, who speaks Arabic, and as such, and she was on radio in Israel for many years. Monitors Arabic broadcasts.
Yep, and that's why Aaron speaks Arabic.
Yes, and why Aaron was so valuable to the IDF in the intelligence division. Rachel is very much aware that what Arabs are saying to one another is different than what they are saying to the West. That is taqiyya. That is the Muslim doctrine that they can lie to kafar, non-believers, in the service of Allah. So anyway, I'll put that together and have that out tomorrow evening. And I'm going to reach out to Raymond Ibrahim soon. His new book, The Two Swords of Christ, has been released, and I'm sure will be an excellent read based on the books of his that I've read previously, which highly recommend if you want an insight into what is going on, not just in Israel, but with Muslims around the world, the Muslim infiltration of Europe, of the UK, and even here in the United States, where we now refer to Dearborn, Michigan is Dearborn, Stan.
Yeah, sadly.
It is well worth reading his previous books, Defenders of the West and Sword and Scimitar.
Amen. And by the way, we want to thank Mac Dominic for sending us a copy of his new book, Shadows of Evil, The Rise, Rule, and Return of the Old Gods. Mac gets it.
He does. Mac, God bless him, has cited us in some of his work. And, Mac is a very intelligent guy, so we consider that high praise. And
we
it
do.
is. But as we've often said, look, we're standing on the shoulders of others who've done the research.
That's so true.
And, not least of which, of course, is Mike Heiser. I understand this weekend is the Society for Biblical Literature Conference. And there's a new and expanded edition of Mike's book, The Unseen Realm, that is now out and available. And I saw that there's I forget who posted it. If it was Mike's his ministry. Anyway, his. But there was a display there at the SBL booth next to the Logos Bible Software booth. It had this big poster that showed the Heiser effect.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes.
And I know that I don't want to rabbit trail too far. But anyway, the point being, we always appreciate when others see what Mike helped us to see.
Amen to that.
So anyway, that's what's coming up. And we will be back, next weekend, I guess, Thanksgiving weekend. So we're going to take the weekend off and just do some writing. And
That's probably a good idea. Many of you will be getting together with family, and I pray that you get to spend the weekend with them. So, let's all rest that weekend. And
take time with family and
ones.
more analog time and less digital time.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So until next time, whenever that is, may God bless you. And I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. And for Grace and Glory, who are not here, but with Aunt Eileen, we love you all. Bye-bye, everybody.
VID radio is on the air. Politics, prophecies, and conspiracy.